Just announced the White House card. And I'm going to lie to you guys, when Dana White was talking about this prior to announcing it, he said it was going to be 6, 7 title fights. And it was 2 title fights. Now let's talk about the fights. Okay. The main event is Justin Gaethje taking on Ilia Topuria. I like that fight. I think it's a great fight. I think the biggest thing, like off the top of my head, I think Ilia Topuria knocks him out. But I do see a world where Justin Gaethje can knock him out as well. But Ilia Topuria is so damn good and his IQ is really high and he can take a shot and he damn well can give a shot. But the other flip side of this, what makes me excited, is to see how Justin Gaethje approaches it after spending time with him playing football. Because when he was talking about Paddy Pimblett, he was like, well, Paddy can't kick, so I was okay going into his power. How will he approach this fight against Ilia Topuria, where someone who can kick and has a lot of power? And then in the co-main event, you have the interim heavyweight champion, Ciryl Gane. Well, there is no interim heavyweight champion. They're making an interim heavyweight champion because the heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall, is still unable to defend his belt. So they have Alex Pereira taking on Ciryl Gane. This is an interesting fight. This is, you know, we have 2 strikers coming to fight. We have Ciryl Gane, who is definitely the bigger athlete, who's very good about avoiding getting hit. He has a side karate stance. Taking on Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira, you know, the former world champion in the middleweight division and the light heavyweight division, and also Glory kickboxing champion. That should be an interesting fight just because it's Alex Pereira going up to heavyweight and see how he does it.
To Ilia Topuria in the main event in the White House. If he pulls it off, it'll be cinema, okay? And I'll assume that the rig is in. And Topuria has been paid $10 million to make the US look good on the world stage. Because Gaethje, he's the all-American. He's red, white, he bleeds red, white, and blue, brother. You know what I mean? He's going to be there. He's the only American that's even in conversations to ever be in a title fight. Unless they did Yan O'Malley too. Which people would still complain about, by the way, but it's the only...
Maybe I'm being a sourpuss Sally. Maybe I'm just being a bit of a pessimist. But the UFC's White House card was just announced, and for what we were promised, this is a massive letdown. And I'm gonna explain why this had every opportunity to bring the UFC back to prominence, to stake their claim once again as the combat sports outlet across boxing, MMA, and everything in between. And they fumbled it. Not because they had to, not because there was no other way to do it, but because the UFC is in a place right now where this is the product. And I guess there is no fighting it anymore. You just have to get used to it. What do I mean? The breakdown. Let's go. Let's contextualize this, right? For the last however many months, Dana White, who sat down with me, who sat down with other people, who had talked about the UFC White House card, had essentially said that this would be like the UFC Sphere on steroids, right? UFC Freedom 250 is what they're calling it. And yeah, you know, if you mention steroids in a UFC card, how do you not have John Jones involved? We'll get to that in a second. But Dana and the entire UFC and the teases that have come from being this, you know, insane, massive card, putting it together, how it was going to blow everything out of the water, it was going to be badass and all this. The hype around this has been ridiculous. And it's given you a sense of like, oh man, something big is coming. Something, you know, along the lines of a UFC 100, 200, 300, or like when, again, you know, Conor McGregor Habib was announced. Conor McGregor came back to the Donald Cerrone fight was announced. When Jorge Masvidal fought Nate Diaz for the BMF, when George St. Pierre came back at UFC 217, it had that kind of feel to it. And I think that's the biggest problem I have right now, was the hype did not match the delivery. This is like ordering Domino's pizza and somehow Little Caesars is delivered. You don't know how it got there. It's definitely not what you asked for. It's clearly not what you were promised, but it's pizza, so you'll eat it. This is kind of how I feel about the UFC White House card. But without further ado, here it is. Drum roll, please. Okay, UFC Freedom 250. And honestly, this isn't a bad card, okay? Because you have Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje for the World Lightweight Championship. I have my problems there, but okay. Champion versus interim champion, do your deal. Then the co-main event, Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane for the interim heavyweight championship. Okay, Alex Pereira making his way up to heavyweight. We knew this was coming when he dropped the strap at 205. Ciryl Gane, I have my problems with it. We'll come back to it.
Big breaking news on this Saturday, March 7th. UFC 326 is actually happening as I'm recording this right now, but at approximately 10 p.m. Eastern time, our long international nightmare came to an end. Why? Because the UFC finally announced the White House card. They're calling it UFC Freedom 250. Of course, July 4th will be the United States' 250th birthday. Obviously, this event is happening on June 14th, a Sunday night, which just so happens to be the president's birthday, and they finally announced it. And so now we can talk about it. The main event is in fact going to be Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje for the lightweight title. A unification bout, of course. Gaethje won that belt back on January 24th. Ilya is the man. He won that belt in June of last year, and he's coming back to fight in the main event of the White House card. So it's Spain/Georgia versus the United States on June 14th. That's the main event. The co-main event is Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight to fight Ciryl Gane for the interim heavyweight title. More on that in a moment. Also on the card, I'm reading this because I don't want to mess it up. Sugar Sean O'Malley against Ayman Zahabi. So that's the United States versus Canada. By the way, Pereira, Brazil versus France. So there's one fight that doesn't feature an American, although he does live in Connecticut and sort of feels like an adopted American at this point. Michael Chandler does end up on the card. He goes up against Mauricio Hufi. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins, America versus America, and Steve Garcia versus Diego Lopez. They love Diego Lopez. He's getting this opportunity after just getting a chance to fight for the belt. So in the end, as I told you, 6 fights, 2 title fights. It was not the 7 to 8 title fights as was initially promised. It's a marquee main event. I know that there are some people who are upset. I know that there are some people who are trying to say like, hey, this is a letdown. This is an incredible 6-fight card. And it was never going to be 7 to 8 title fights. That was never going to happen. That would screw up the rest of their schedule. Ilia Topuria coming back against Justin Gaethje is a massive, massive fight. It is a marquee fight. It is one of the biggest fights of the year. Topuria coming back after everything he's been through, almost exactly a year.
What once felt almost impossible has now officially become reality. And honestly, it's hard not to call it wild. The White House fight card is actually happening. The reaction from the MMA world was instant and incredibly loud. Fighters, analysts, and media personalities all started weighing in right away, trying to understand what this means, what the event could turn into, and why it carries so much significance. The entire MMA community is currently processing the idea of what might become one of the most unique moments in combat sports history. And that's not exaggeration. We're talking about a combat sports event connected to the White House, something very few people would have believed even a short time ago. Now the big question everyone keeps asking is just how huge this event could really become. When you think about the scale and the symbolism behind it, the possibilities start to feel pretty massive. So it's worth breaking everything down carefully and looking at why the whole combat sports world is buzzing about it right now.
Dana, you talked about you don't want to say what fight fell out, which is fair enough, but there is obviously...
Well, there's weird circumstances around it that we probably shouldn't talk about.
Okay. There is speculation, of course, that it's John Jones.
No, it's not.
Was John
Ever, which I told you guys 100,000 times, was John Jones even remotely in my mind to fight at the White House. I wouldn't. First of all, I've told you why I wouldn't do it. And number 2, some guy with meta glasses on filmed him talking about his hips, that his hips are so bad. And I don't know if you guys saw that flag football game where he can barely run. John Jones he retired because of his hips. He's got arthritis in his hips. Apparently he's been, doctors say he should have hip replacement. So,
okay.
Add that on top of all the other reasons that I wouldn't. The John Jones thing is bullshit. Yeah. I'm not saying they weren't talking to John Jones and that John Jones wasn't interested in the fight. And what was even crazier is John Jones came out and was like, I'm in negotiations right now for the White House fight, after I had already sent a text to his lawyer saying, never go.
After the official announcement of the fight scheduled for this historic card, Dana White was quickly asked about a matchup that had been circulating in rumors, but was never actually confirmed for the event. And honestly, the question was predictable. As soon as the announcement dropped, speculation about John Jones immediately started spreading across the MMA community. That usually happens whenever a huge card is discussed. White addressed the situation quickly and shut down the idea of that fight happening on this particular event. He didn't leave the door open or hint at anything uncertain either. Instead, he explained that there were already specific reasons why that matchup wasn't part of the card in the first place. With that response, the rumors were essentially ended before they could grow even bigger across social media and online MMA discussions.
Okay, so Justin Gaethje, we were just talking about the White House card there. It's now official. You're headlining with Ilia Topuria for Undisputed. Congratulations. That is huge. You didn't reveal the news when you came and sat with us earlier. We won't take offense, but...
No, I didn't know. I wasn't sure.
No,
you didn't know. I was not sure.
Hold on, you're saying that when they made the announcement, that was a surprise to you.
That was 100% confirmation that I was the main event. I didn't know that. I didn't know who the co-main event, or if I was the co-main event, or who the other fight was at the time.
I should have known something was up when they came in my ear. They said, ask Justin 2 questions. Don't talk about what's next for him. Don't talk about the next fight. Don't talk about the White House. I should have saw it coming.
They know I'm too honest.
So what do you think about this historic White House fight card that has everyone in the combat sports world talking? Do you feel like the lineup lives up to the massive hype that has been building, or do you think it didn't quite match the expectations created by all the rumors and speculation? Share your opinion in the comments because it's always interesting to hear what fans really think about these matchups. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any updates, breaking stories, fighter interviews, and behind-the-scenes information from the MMA world as we continue covering every part of this unique